Welcome back, as always, to Unfinished Business Television. This is the November edition, and I am your host, Jeff Galashaw, otherwise known as Unfinished B2 on social media and the channel that this is airing on, Unfinished B1. And with me, as always, is my co-host, Andre Joseph of AJ Epics Productions.
By the time this episode drops, hopefully there's a country. If not, good luck.
So yes, don't forget to vote, and please vote with your heart. If this airs before election day, or I hope you voted with your heart, so we can keep democracy alive. But let's not get into politics because we have plenty of subjects to talk about today, as well as plenty of trailers, as well as plenty of reviews. So without further ado, let's get to our first news story. And a big shout to no one, and which our own Andre Joseph predicted, Blade, the movie, has not only been delayed, but it's been taken off of Marvel's schedule altogether. The latest rumor was that director James Samuel was going to direct it, and like it was a done deal. And then later in the same day, he's like, "Nope, I did not plan on to direct it." And now it has totally been taken off the schedule, and I believe they have taken it off the schedule, but then they set up three mystery dates Marvel has for upcoming movies. One in February 18th of 2028, one for May 5th of 2028, and one for November 10th of 2028. So, Andre, as the person who predicted this, what do you have to say about this current situation?
Well, clearly, this was no surprise. We talked about this in the previous episode or the episode before that with the report that came out with a number of the behind the scenes issues with Marshall Ali's big demands when it comes to the writing, when it comes to the direction, the need to make this his Black Panther level hit, and nothing's happened. This guy's been basically sitting around, probably doing a couple of Netflix movies and Apple Plus TV shows that nobody really saw. And clearly, when it was obvious this wasn't going to happen, he goes and does the new Jurassic Park. So that was already an indication that he's probably out of this thing. Now, the rumor that I heard from the website Cosmic Circus is that they want to wrap up the multiverse saga. They just want to ramp things up. And, since Brave New World and Thunderbolts are already trains that left the station, Fantastic Four and everything that comes out before Doomsday and Secret Wars will be mostly multiverse centric movies to ramp up to RDJ's big return as Doctor Doom. So Blade isn't flat out canceled, but likely going to be pushed off to after Secret Wars, since that's not focused on the multiverse. That's more the supernatural side of the MCU. But if we're talking, let's say 2028, Ali is out. I think you're not going to have a guy that's pushing 60 years old who you expect to be long term, sticking with this character. And obviously, with Wesley Snipes coming back in Deadpool, that might even open up the door for him to get one more shot at it. But I still have my doubts. I think if they do bring him back, it'll be one and done again. What I think will end up happening is there will be a Blade movie, or at the very least, set him up in another film as a side character. But chances are, when we do see that actor and it's not Wesley Snipes, it's likely to be somebody much younger, more affordable, and someone that's going to be willing to play ball.
Well, my thing is with all this, I guess Wesley Snipes' line in Deadpool Wolverine is prosthetic. As he said, there will only be one Blade ever.
And you wonder how they let that pass given the current situation, because that's something that Marvel wouldn't just like throw up on there and keep it in the final cut.
Maybe it was a hint. My thing would be, honestly, I know he's the next Black Glenn Powell, but my thing is, if you were going to make a Blade, maybe it would be a good time to look into an Aaron Pierre to do it. I know he was originally cast when they first seemed like a Blade was a go. I obviously he wasn't gonna play Blade. We don't know which character he was gonna play. Most likely the villain. But I think maybe now with his new standing with Rebel Ridge, and now people are throwing in his name for the 007 role, even, this would not be a bad, I guess, entrance for him. But the only thing that works against it is that he's going to be Green Lantern in the
Right.
DC universe. So, but if I was going to nominate somebody currently, he would be the first person in my head to come as a replacement if Mahershala Ali does indeed drop out eventually. So next we have this debacle that's happening with juror number 2, which is supposedly going to be, again, Clint Eastwood's last film as a director. And I mean, looking at him, it probably will be. And this film, it's a legal thriller starring Nicholas Hoult. And it was supposed to, originally, they say, it was supposed to go direct to streaming. And now a lot of people are saying, oh, they're burying it by only putting it in 50 theaters. But my thing is, maybe they're kind of giving it something, a little extra oomph by putting it in these 50 theaters, considering, again, it was supposed to go straight to streaming. But it also reminds me of like kind of the marketing they're doing Apple Plus movies and some Netflix movies, where it'll come out in theaters a week before or a few days before it hits streaming. And I would figure, I know a lot of people are trying to say this is an injustice for Clint Eastwood, but it's also kind of like, let's say, like when Jay-Z said he was going to retire, but we all knew he was going to come back eventually. And it's the same thing here. Like, we all really believed it when Eastwood said, I'm done after Gran Torino, but then he kept coming back and kept making films. So I think this time, now that it seems like just because of age, this finally might be when he's really done. And now everybody's treating it like, yeah, whatever. It's just another Eastwood movie. And what are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's interesting because I saw an interview. Well, actually, it wasn't an interview. It was like a brief clip. I think he was showing the film at some event and he was doing a panel discussion. It wasn't a very long clip. Even though like the pictures of him lately, obviously he looks frail. He doesn't look like, the statuesque Clint Eastwood. He's still sharp. I mean, the guy still could talk coherently and doesn't sound like a complete old man, but I think this all goes back to when Cry Macho was released. And of course, that was a victim of the date and date release with HBO Max. But once this Zaslav asshole decided to take over with the Warner Discovery merger, he singled that movie out as something he wouldn't have even greenlit. And knowing
Damn.
Clint Eastwood, who's somebody that has a lot of power and stroke in the business, that's kind of a shock to have somebody of a David Zaslav come in and talk shit about Clint. But this also goes, like you say, if this is the last one, as far as we know, they're looking at this as this is probably not going to make a crap ton of money. It looks more like something you would put on Netflix than to put in the theater, despite his prestige and despite his Oscars. I think the last hit movie he really had was Sully with Tom Hanks. And I think The Mule did okay, but that was more for an older audience anyway. So that's probably the way that they see it here is that, yeah, you got Nicholas Hoult and you got a couple of other actors in there that have some appeal, but ultimately this is only going to play to an older crowd. And so I think they just, in a sense, want to put Clint out to pasture and call it a day, give the movie a little bit of value by putting it in the theater. If it does get good buzz, maybe they expand it. It's possible. But it is a shame to try to have it end that way if it is his last film. And even if it's not, I'm sure there's other studios willing to do business with him, maybe like a Universal or even a Sony that could stay theatrical, would totally want to be in the business with him if he still has a little bit left as a director, not as an actor. As an actor, he's done.
Well, I mean, my thing is, I think he should just rest on his laurels, because I think he's an example of what Quentin Tarantino is a little afraid of becoming, where it's like, oh, I want all my films to be notable. I don't want to be older making films and nobody really cares, or I have to make something formulaic so it will make money. So, I can be in movie jail because maybe this is just ageism in general with Clint Eastwood. But I would say it was ageism if maybe his last few movies were at least notable. But it feels like he's making like with his last films, he's making films. Yeah, that stories he wants to tell, but there isn't that much of an audience. And if this was back in his heyday, the 70s and the 80s, just from his name alone, they'd make it. But now it's more of a like, well, only people recognize your name, but how many of that younger audience are fans of you? And older fans, of course, you'll always have. But again, the older fans are more, might be staying at home watching streaming. They're not spending the money to go out and go see and they're
Yeah,
not packed. Go ahead.
and the younger fans pretty much they see him either as just another old legend or they don't like his politics. And honestly, this is a guy that's worked with everybody, and I still consider him an icon. And I was like kind of late in the game as a fan, particularly in the 90s, going back and watching all the Dirty Harrys. Like, he's still a hero to me, regardless.
Well, I think he's again, like you said, he's an icon, but he's also a relic of the past. Sort of like when John Wayne kind of got older, except John Wayne couldn't have that much except for one character. So that's why with Clint Eastwood, at least he can direct and still can produce. Like maybe he should have been on Yellowstone instead of Kevin Costner, or maybe he should have had this, Western four-parter that people would have tuned in to go see rather than Kevin Costner, who's now struggling with the next two parts that he has to make.
I think he made the smart call a long time ago when he just said, Unforgiven, that's it for Westerns for me. And he stuck to that.
Well, I mean, he said that, but again, as you can see, like with his retirement, it's sort of flimsy. Like, yeah, I said that, but I changed my mind. I had my coffee. I, got some new vitamins. I'm ready to go. Next, we have Josh Brolin has been added as the villain in the Running Man reboot, remake, however you want, or adaptation, whichever way you want to look at it, as well as Katie O'Brien as the female lead. And of course, Glenn Powell is starring in this film. I'm interested in the take, being that it's written and directed by Edgar Wright. But no offense, I just don't see Josh Brolin as a talk show host or a game show host. I would see him more, let's say, the Jesse Ventura role, or maybe even the Jim Brown role from if we're going with not the age thing, just the toughness. What you see him as the opera singer?
They probably would get Jonathan Majors for the Jim Brown role, and he's affordable.
And I'd be like, yeah, and he barely has any lines. And Josh Gad as the opera singing overweight, assassin. Or I'll even say Josh Brolin, if he wasn't going to be the star, make him the Yaphet Kotto role. Or I just don't see him as the leader of the resistance.
Oh, McFleetwood.
Yeah, I'm like, no, that's not Josh Brolin. Maybe in a bit Dweezil Zappa role where he gets to say one line in the whole movie. But I just don't. I'm sorry. I love Josh Brolin, but I just don't see him filling Richard Dawson's shoes as the villain. And maybe I'm wrong. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have too much to say about him as far as his participation. I agree he probably would be better for the Joseph Ventura role than the Richard Dawson, because Richard Dawson should be like a scrawny nobody, not a video like a a gaming guy, but definitely someone that you could believe as a TV show host rather than big buff Josh Brolin with the gruffy voice. But Look, I'm actually still for this. I think I mentioned it before. The Running Man, the Schwarzenegger movie, is fun, but it's not a sacred cow. It has its issues, and it's shot like a TV movie more than anything else, and has its share of actors of the day. Here, I could see Edgar Wright put a nice style to it. Glenn Powell's the man right now, and this could be a vehicle for him, but also too could go back to what was originally intended with the original. The original was supposed to be a Christopher Reeve vehicle, so maybe Glenn Powell could kind of follow in that trait rather than Schwarzenegger with the one-liners. But they'll probably throw something in there like "You're fired" or "I'll be back." Actually, no, not "I'll be back," but one of the other things he said that I don't remember right now.
Well, I mean, if you really wanted to make it meta, have Arnold Schwarzenegger play the Richard Dawson role.
Oh, and then Katie O'Brien in the jumpsuit, but it has to be like all like the muscles pumping out from it.
Well, I think with her being in this film, it also will show like, oh, she's not like how Maria Conchita, excuse me, Maria Conchita Alonso, more the damsel in distress, and then
Yeah,
this is somebody who could play with the big boys, as they would say. Really
right.
seem like they can make it through the competition. But I'm interested. I can't say I'm excited. I'm just the only part of excitement is that Edgar Wright is making another movie. That's the exciting part. But I'll most likely go see it. And speaking of reboots, Luca Guadagnino, I hope I'm saying his last name right. It's very long and very Italian. He of Challenger's fame wants to make or remake an adaptation of American Psycho. And as much of a fan as I am of the iconic Christian Bale performance in the movie version of American Psycho, it will be interesting to see what he does because he's more artistic, and I think even though I'll take it, it's still going to stay set in the 1980s. But I think he's maybe a little better with exploring psychological while making things very visual, if that makes any sense to you listening. But not that there's anything wrong with Mary Herron's version, but I mean, I'm a big fan of the writing of Bret Easton Ellis. So I look forward to it. And especially after being so impressed with his roster of films, including one of which we'll be reviewing later, A Bones and All. I think he's a good everyman director, but he also kind of feels like Woody Allen in his workload, where it's like every year it seems like he has a new project ready to be released. And I just worry about, will certain projects be spread a little thin because he's already on to the next project rather than taking his time and developing. And how do you feel about this set of news of the American Psycho adaptation? And
I think it's a bad idea. I don't know what you're going to add to it that's any different or new or something in the book that wasn't in the Christian Bale movie. It just seems kind of like a pointless remake, like a lot of these remakes are. What I would like to see Luca do would be a remake of Less Than Zero. I think he could pull that off with his style. And the way that Challengers didn't really have a lot of sympathetic characters, his style would work better in something like Less Than Zero, where you are kind of like removed from the trio of characters in that. And instead of like what they tried to do there, where they were basically trying to make a Dark St. Elmo's Fire, where you're supposed to like feel bad for everybody, especially Robert Downey Jr., he would be better suited to redo that than to do American Psycho because you have nothing to add.
well, I think with American Psycho, he can offer something a little bit different, sort of like when he remade Suspiria, another movie that really didn't need to be remade, but at least he brought something different to it. Maybe not that much, but at least it's something different. I agree with you though about that Less Than Zero idea because if you've ever read the book, most of the movie Less Than Zero is not in the book. Like you said, it feels more like an after-school special version of St. Elmo's Fire. So, if anything, I agree with you. That will be our next pitch, a Less Than Zero remake, and who we think would be perfectly cast. But we have too much stuff to discuss right now, so maybe we'll do a separate video of pitches, or we'll save it for another episode. I'll even write it down for another episode, but I like that idea. So, moving on, Christopher Nolan is finally ready to play it. He's ready to start filming a movie next year. But the mystery is, what movie is it going to be? Because there's tons of rumors. There was a rumor earlier that it was going to be a horror film. Some people have heard that it's going to be an espionage spy film. There's even now it's going to be kind of like Sinners, the Michael B. Jordan movie that's coming out next year, where it's supposed to be a 1920s set vampire tale. Some even have said that it's going to be kind of like a remake of Blue Thunder, that is a thriller that takes that involves a helicopter pilot. But my thing is, with the helicopter stuff, if it is indeed a vampire film, maybe he was just trying to come up with ways of doing more aerial shots, but more, designer, where something we've never seen before. Um, the only thing that is certain is that it will star Matt Damon, and that it will star little Spidey Tom Holland. Finally getting another big credit. I just don't want it to be like that movie he made with Mark Wahlberg, where it's like older guy, younger guy, buddies, let's team up. Make this, Oppenheimer. Let Matt Damon be Cillian Murphy, and then let Tom Holland be Josh Hart. Or shit, let him be Casey Affleck. Shock us all with like a strong performance out of nowhere. How are you feeling, or what have you heard about Christopher Nolan's next project?
Basically everything you just said. And my only hope is that it is something along the lines of Blue Thunder. Obviously not a remake, but kind of like the original concept for that, which was supposed to be like Taxi Driver. It was supposed to be like a more crazed pilot that was flying the helicopter and trying to attack the whole city rather than, Roy Scheider on the run, a whole espionage plot, which could work for Nolan. But yeah, it could be something like that. It could be something more futuristic. That was another thing that I heard about. Who knows? But typical of him getting all these all-star casts together like he always does with his movies. So we just have to wait and see. Just hopefully it's not another Tenet.
Well, my thing is, but I guess when it comes to a director like Christopher Nolan now at this point, can he make more of a conventional movie or a smaller project, or is now with his clout, is he always going to be tied to, like, no matter what you do, it's got to cost like $100 million, pretty much, sort of like Paul Thomas Anderson, who we're used to making small projects, but no can make big projects. But like his new film with Leo DiCaprio, it's like it's rumored to cost 150 to 175 million dollars, where you're wondering, what the hell? Where's this money going to? Can Christopher Nolan do a smaller project, or does he even want to now, when he knows he can always go for the bigger and better?
Yeah, I mean, for every Christopher Nolan, there's a David Lynch that could do the big, or back in the day, do the big studio movie and then go back to do something smaller like Blue Velvet. Nolan, I think once he started doing the Batman movies, if they started giving him blank checks, his ideas probably just ballooned into things that were going to cost upwards of like 250 to 300 million. And that's what he's sticking with because that's what they're paying him. And so, unless he gets exhausted with that or starts having a string of flops, he's going to keep going with the big, budget concept ideas.
Well, it just reminds me of like when Michael Bay wanted to direct Phone Booth, and his first note was, "Okay, how do we get it out of the phone booth?" Like I just wonder if he has that thinking now, where it's like, I could make this, a nice little small project, but even though I have tons of dialogue scenes, what I really need is a 10-minute montage in the desert, with rain dancers, stuff like that, where you're like, that isn't needed. It looks great, but is it really needed to push the story along? Or is it just great background? I just wonder about that. The next story puts a smile to my face. The Day the Earth Blew Up, an original Looney Tunes animated film, is going to come out on February 8th next year, and in a few theaters to qualify for a Best Animated Film Oscar nomination. But it's kind of like Warner Brothers is forced to release the film, because originally it was supposed to come out on HBO Max in 2021, but then they were ready to put it as on David Zaslav's favorite, the tax write-off list, with what was it? Coyote versus Acme and Batgirl. But since it's playing a film festival and it's gotten such a positive buzz, now Warner Brothers is kind of forced to put the film out, and I'm here for it. I'm not the biggest animated film fan, but I don't like David Zaslav, or at least his business ideas, and I like the Looney Tunes old school kind of cartoon animation coming out for this next generation. Instead of something that's invented that feels like, okay, this feels like you want me to buy a bunch of stuff watching this movie. Or, there are some exceptions like Wild Robot, Iron Giant 2, I'll call that. But I'm really excited to see this project. How are you feeling about this, Andre?
Oh, I mean, I'm happy to see a Looney Tunes movie get out there, period. And if it's getting good buzz, it should absolutely come out. But I don't understand why they allowed this to get released and not Coyote versus Acme, which, by all accounts, was getting good reviews across the board. Everything was done, everything was set to go. But then they're like, oh, we're going to just write this off and we're not even going to sell it to a Netflix or to another streaming platform. This is just stupidity again on this guy Zaslav and the way that he has mismanaged such a prestigious studio. And it still pisses me off just thinking about it. And I would say the people who made this Looney Tunes movie should probably be a little more vocal about, hey, if we're getting our thing out there, let's pay it forward. Let's try to get Kaido versus Acme in front of people. It boggles the mind that they do this sort of thing.
Well, I think the only reason this is getting released is, again, because it's playing a film festival where regular, I guess, audience members can actually see it. Whereas,
yippee.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, versus Coyote versus, Acme versus Coyote, which only industry people got to see,
So John Cena's not prestigious.
Not to Warner Brothers and maybe not to some acting directors. But I told you, the man acts with his hair. But
patch that they have to cover in the back.
No, I, as I've said in my reviews, you can tell the character by however his hair is styled. And look at Jackpot. Even look at his little cameos in movies like Sister. You automatically know what type of character you're going to get from. I have not watched the one where he's a firehouse dog or whatever it was called.
I remember when he was still wrestling, and first he was trying to be like the white rapper, and then when the Marine came out, he just started coming out in fatigues. And then once that movie pretty much came and went, then he went back to the jean shorts.
Well, now he's always in a suit or a three-piece suit. So
yeah, and they're like tacky suits you get from the discount aisle at JCPenney.
Well, look at how fucking huge he is. Where else is he? What? He can't go to a normal store and be like, yes, give me this. Give me a purple.
They need to bring back Sims.
Or no, maybe he's trying to be the anti-Rock by since the Rock's always like, hey, everyday wear. He's like, no, I'm the suit guy. And I mean, well, would you rather him dress up like Randy Macho Man Savage? Tassels, colorful, big ass shades. And
didn't work for Hogan, brother.
No, he's still dressing like that. But then again, he lives in Florida. Next, we have Liam Neeson is claiming yet again, while he's on his I'm filming The Naked Gun, and I hope this will be my next franchise. He has said he's retiring from action movies. Now, just a reminder, he said this 7 years ago and 9 action movies ago that he was retiring. So it seemed like, yeah, he did retire from action movies 7 years ago from them making it to actual theaters, but he made 9 more. So I'm just wondering, okay, you're retiring from action films again. Is it like I'm retiring from playing heroes? Like, is there always a little star asterisk situation going on with each retirement that you said? Are you going to make horse movies since you're all for their health? I'm just wondering, what the hell?
Yeah, he said this 7 years ago, and we believed it. And then he started doing with the ice trucker thing and the marksman. Yeah, he hasn't stopped. And I mean, I like Liam Neeson. I've always been a fan of his, but I definitely feel he's devalued his career by continuing down the action track and playing the same kind of characters in every movie. Yeah, it works for Bronson, it works for all those guys back in the day, but now it's just become a joke. Hopefully, Naked Gun gives him an opportunity to do some improvisational comedy, puts him on the comedy route for a little bit. He'll probably still go back to the dramas at some point, but he's got to get back to like I don't know. I know he just worked with Neil Jordan in that Marlon movie, which wasn't so hot, but maybe Spielberg could throw him a bone or somebody, but he needs some help. If he's really going to get out of action, he needs some big hits outside of the genre to keep him going till he decides to call it quits.
Well, the problem is he has such a presence. He can't be like, let's say, a Mark Strong, where it's like, hey, we need a supporting character to, I don't know, pull Eggsy through whatever that that movie is. He can't just drop in and be like, oh, hello, I am Carl, the tech guy. Any role he plays, you're gonna be like, that's Liam Neeson. It's sort of like when Nicolas Cage tried to do that film with Oliver Stone and Joseph Gordon-Levitt, where Nicolas Cage is just, oh, I'm just the trainee. It's like it's Nicolas Cage. You can't just fade into the background. I think Liam Neeson should just go follow Cage and just do weird roles, unexpected roles, but then also kind of the roles you would expect from.
Yeah, have him play a grocery store clerk.
Who has to inform somebody they have AIDS.
Yeah. Or a real estate agent.
Exactly. Or play like a drunk in like a period piece. Like how in all those old westerns there'd be that old gunslinger who was a drunk now, but all of a sudden he gets sober just in time to save the town. Give him those type of roles.
Or maybe like a biopic on the guy that created Guinness. That's Irish, right?
Isn't it more Scottish?
I'm not racist.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, let's stop talking about his culture. I say Seabiscuit to Liam Neeson as the owner of the horse.
You want to bring us back now? Come on.
Yes, he cares about horse charity so much. He revived his career against being a racist in Atlanta by being Liam Neeson, the racist. So you never know. Stay unpredictable like that. Be like Alexander Sarsgaard, where it's like, wait, he's in this? I say go with that. Be a man of mystery. Be kind of a good Mel Gibson, where it's like, wait, he's in this? Try hook up with Vince Vaughn. I don't know. Do a buddy comedy with him. Play Vince Vaughn's dad.
Just don't drink a lot so you don't look angry.
I don't think. I think that's part of his appeal is looking at. Do you want to see a kind and giggly Liam Neeson?
Would you want to see Mel Gibson now in an alleyway?
I wouldn't have wanted to see Mel Gibson in an alleyway back then when he was likable. I'm like, now Mel Gibson in an alleyway just looks like you don't know if he's gonna preach to you or try to rape you. He looks like that. He's Malcolm McDowell when Malcolm McDowell plays villains.
Malcolm McDowell, he's a nice guy.
But he doesn't look that way when he's in
no.
It's like, you don't look at Malcolm McDowell in a movie and be like, oh, that's Granddad. No, you look at Malcolm McDowell like, he's going to skin me. It's like Brad Dourif. Brad Dourif's a nice guy, but the roles he plays, you'd be fucking afraid of him if you saw him normally.
I think I'd be more afraid of his daughter.
That's because you watch a lot of Chuck.
It's a good show. I don't really watch the last season, though.
It is a good show, but again, she's always playing scary roles, but she's probably a very lovely, nice young woman. And it's bad when she's playing a younger version of her dad as a male. So, but she's a pretty girl. But anyway, let's move on.
Don Mancini, come on the show.
Would love Don Mancini, Brad Dourif, Fiona Dourif, Liam Neeson,
Christina Elise, come on the show.
Oh yes, and I would love to talk about most of your projects. Actually, a lot of 90210 questions. So next, Robert Zemeckis in an interview said that basically the state of cinema, the way it is now, people are afraid to greenlight because nobody knows exactly what's working, and has basically shared with us what everybody says, that things are slow in Hollywood now when it comes to greenlighting projects because no one knows what to really do or what to greenlight. And he said the most shocking thing he said was that even with his movie here, which he knows would not normally get a green light, he doesn't even believe most of the films he's known for, his classic films, would have gotten green lit today. And and it does make you think, and some of it is true. I think Back to the Future might have been greenlit, but I don't think you pitching it as a three-parter would have gone through. And I think, well, I don't know. They don't make adult dramas really with a big budget, so I don't know if Flight would have gone through as a green light. Some of you, no offense to him, but some of his movies should not have been greenlit. Used Cars probably would not have been greenlit, or if it did, it would have to star Will Ferrell or some big comedy star. I think, I don't know if, especially at Warner Brothers, if they would have been forward enough thinking for Who Framed Roger Rabbit if he wanted to pitch it now. Since we were talking about Coyote versus Acme, can't even get released by Warner Brothers. Do you agree with his statement in his interview, or like me, can you see maybe some of them would have gone through, some of them would?
I think there's a lot of kernels of truth in what Zemeckis said, because Back to the Future, as you know, was turned down quite a bit, and not because, I mean, they didn't even plan it as a trilogy, but um, the whole subplot of Marty's mother falling in love with him,
Oh, that
nobody
would have been.
even Disney didn't even want to touch that. So it really took Romancing the Stone to be a hit and Spielberg to give it the okay to get that made. And Roger Rabbit probably would have been more difficult now with the way the studios are so strict with their licenses. It would have been hard for Warner Brothers, Disney to collaborate. And there were politics then too with how they handled the characters, but it would be a lot worse now. And even something like Forrest Gump, to do a whole 3-hour movie of a guy going through historical moments and this back and forth love story with a woman that is doing drugs and being promiscuous, I don't know if that would fly today. They would probably see it as a Netflix 8-part series, not as
Oh,
opposed to an
geez.
epic movie. But the fact that this is coming from Robert Zemeckis also sort of adds to the fact that this guy has not had a hit since Flight, and most of what he has made has not been very good, or it just hasn't really been all that financially successful. I was the other day I was with a buddy of mine. We went to see a special screening of Back to the Future Part 2, which I had remember seeing with my dad when it hit the theaters back in '89, and thinking of all the nostalgia. But watching that movie now and seeing how all the effects still hold up between the hoverboard scene and the way that he was able to do the duplicate Michael J. Fox's, the duplicate Christopher Lloyd's, and make it look seamless. And of course, some parts are still kind of fuzzier than others, but it still looks amazing today. And that was the magic of a guy like Zemeckis, even to a degree like James Cameron, that they were able to wow you with their cinematic technology that they were bringing to the screen. He doesn't do that now. And then when I look at something like Here, which we talked about the trailer, it just looks like, oh yeah, this is just generated in AI. Anybody now could go on their phone and de-age themselves. And sometimes it looks amazing and sometimes it looks like complete shit. But, you know, he and all these other guys that we grew up on that are icons of our business are basically now the ones that they're putting out to pasture. So when they want to do something different and original, it's going to be harder to get it greenlit because these studios don't want to take those risks right now with people not going to the theater as much. And, we're going to talk about Saturday Night later. And I feel like there were some issues as far as that being put out theatrically and the box office and the discrepancy there. this is just the state of the times that we're in. And I think he needs a new agent and needs a better selection of movies. Again, I never want to see this guy go back to one of his old IPs unless it's Roger Rabbit, which will not happen. But I think he's got to do something exciting again and not these stupid little dramas that nobody sees if he wants to, retain a career for the next decade.
Well, you also have to keep in mind, for a while, he was big on that computer digital animation train too. So, him coming back to live action kind of shows that, that didn't quite work out. But again, I think he also has that older mindset where, like, let's take the movie Man on Wire, where, yeah, back in the day, if you had a big enough star, that would have been a hit. The problem is they already had a hit documentary about it. So nobody cares to see you recreate pretty much the story everybody already knows and make it dramatic. Or you have to bring something different other than just the technical filmmaking. And that was to me, that was what was so surprising about Flight was that was his least technical movie except for that one scene. And he still got a great film. I think he needs more scripts like that and stop trying to make films where he pushes the boundaries of technology and stuff like that. It sometimes makes me wonder if he should have maybe made that movie AI instead of Steven Spielberg. And, even though I will always say Steven Spielberg is the way better filmmaker. He's just naturally good.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Whereas Zemeckis is, I don't want to insult him because I do respect his writing and his direction. Maybe not every film he's made, but he's one of those filmmakers where if he was just producing or just like, executive producing TV movies or series, I wouldn't mind. Like if he said, I'm never making another movie, I'd be a little sad, but I'd be like, I can see why,
Maybe he needs to go back to Tales from the Crypt.
Maybe, yeah, they're remaking Goosebumps and, all these Are You Afraid of the Dark? So go do that. He should have made maybe scary stories to tell,
or Fear Street. He would be great for that.
Exactly. But I just fear that maybe in his own mind, he feels he's bigger than that, or he wants to make something more original. And I'm
have
just
an
like,
Oscar.
Exactly. Like if he directed The Terminal, I wouldn't have been shocked. I'd be like, okay, so used cars too. Okay, with Latka. Our next story, I'm sure it puts a smile on Andre's face. Rob Lowe has confirmed there will be a St. Elmo's Fire 2, spurred by probably also the success of Bratz, the documentary by Andrew McCarthy. And yes, the whole cast will be returning, including Emilio. It's whether him and Andrew McCarthy will have scenes together, we'll have to wait to be seen. And the big person behind putting this film together has been Demi Moore, who herself has been on a hot streak with the movie we'll be talking about later, The Substance. No writer or director has been confirmed because obviously it was co-written and directed by the late Joel Schumacher, who would have really loved to make the sequel. I could see it camping it up already. The big thing, will Judd Nelson be showing up here? And will Andy McDowell make a cameo? Considering her career is better than a lot of the cast members at this current moment. She might be like, oh, we could cut. Or will Molly Ringwald even show up? Why am I talking? Sorry, I'm still in that documentary frame of mind. I'm like, well, Molly. Yeah, will Molly Ringwald show up as a cameo? I know Leah Thompson's down, and you can always get Howard Deutsch to direct it. So, how are you feeling? Are you excited? Are you happy? Have you readied your pitch for St. Elmo's Fire 2?
Well, given the fact that they said everybody's coming back, that pretty much kills my theory that they were going to come back because one of them dies. So I guess Mira Whittingham is sticking around.
Damn, why you
I mean, unless they're going to go like Best Man Holiday on it, the white version.
Hey, I have no problem with it. They can groove to some Alanis Morissette songs.
But what I think they got to do here, Because Schumacher's dead, and I can't think of anybody necessarily who could direct it off the top of my head. But I could honestly say, get the guys who did Cobra Kai to do this movie. And the reason I say this is because we did a deep dive on St. Elmo's Fire years ago, and we talked about all the problematic things about those characters and all the stuff that they do, the all the stalker shit with Rob Lowe. I mean, not Rob Lowe, with
Rob Lowe's like, what?
well, Rob Lowe's drug issue, the infamous like sexual assault scene, and Emilio Estevez stalking Andy McDowell, like all the problematic stuff. But give it to those guys, flip all that shit on its head to make it a little bit more comedic. And I think you might have something here, because I think that would actually make it a little more fun, a little more looser, and not so played so straight and melodramatic. Even like the David Foster music could be played at some moments that are, unintentionally hilarious. So I think there's an opportunity here to make this not like the tone of the original. You could still honor it and, do your Easter eggs, but make fun of that first film. Like, let's point out the shit that didn't work, and I think you can make a really good sequel.
I say we bring in Rob Reiner to direct. We bring in Mayor Winningham's husband, multiple Emmy winner Anthony Edwards as maybe a love interest.
Can we give him a wig?
No, fuck that. Bald Edwards. He let him take his name back from the basketball player. So when I see Anthony Edwards in a movie, I get the Anthony Edwards I expect.
We're sagging all this shit.
I don't know. They should have been like, somebody's got to go by the second or something.
I mean, you got Vanessa Williams and you got Vanessa L. Williams. They were able to figure that shit out.
Well, the basketball player doesn't have to change his name because Anthony Edwards is first. And I feel like bring in Anthony Edwards as a love interest, and to really fuck things up, have him be a love interest for Demi Moore's character. And so we can make this fun and meta.
For some reason, I picture Demi Moore having like a mixed race child.
Why? Because she had wild hair. Is that it? Is the guy who played her gay friend still alive?
Yeah, Matthew Lawrence. Yeah, he's still acting.
So yeah, bring him in too. I don't know what he's doing. Maybe they started an interior design business together. Now we could have Jules be on drugs, but on like new age type of drugs. Obviously, she'll be a pothead, but maybe she's like on to, I don't know, Prozac. It's too much lithium.
Will they have the money to get Jenny Wright out of retirement?
Why is she gonna be that expensive?
Nobody can find her.
So she can just show up on screen, look at him, and be, hey, close the door.
She needs her alimony payment.
I'm like, okay, I would love to see Jenny Wright on the screen, but I think she's gonna be like Teresa Randall, where it's just like, we're just gonna have to recast.
Oh my God.
Except she won't be arrested for assault after she doesn't get the role. Because Tasha Smith had so much to do in Bad Boys 3. But anyway, moving on. Ridley Scott, who I guess because he's in his 80s has to pace himself really fast, has already started writing Gladiator 3 before Gladiator 2 has even come out. But the buzz is that it's good. I at first heard enthusiastic things. Now I'm hearing more middle of the road things. The only thing that is definite is that Denzel Washington is excellent. And that's all the word has said. Do you think maybe Ridley's counting his tickets before they hatched here? Or do you think maybe because he's older, he's like, I feel it?
I believe Gladiator 3 as much as I believe there was going to be an Airplane 3. It's not happening. I mean, and if it does, it's not going to be with Ridley Scott. He probably would produce it, and maybe Denis Villeneuve will do it. I don't know.
I'm just wondering, did he have these same feelings on his last shoot? Like he had that Napoleon 2 script already. It's like, damn it! Or House of Gucci 2? Gucci 2?
If you're going to make sequels to your movies, can we get a Black Rain sequel with an 80-year-old Michael Douglas going back to Japan and kicking ass?
riding motorcycles
Yeah.
with Andy Garcia as an old spirit who still haunts him and talks to him.
But it's got to be like his head floating around.
It'll be in a motorcycle helmet he always has with him.
Take a kiss before he gets fucked.
Because let's not forget, look at the Alien movies that he said, oh, I was going to. Because was he like, oh, Prometheus will be a hit. Okay, I've already got this other one written. And then they were like, do we have to make another one? And he's like, yes, it's in my contract.
How about a sequel to Someone to Watch Over Me? Tom Berenger still works.
Tom Berenger, what is he gonna limp to the set? He's gonna be like, yes, I'm still a detective. What is he gonna be, the old guy who should have retired 10 years ago? Like, no, there's a stalker out there, and I'm going to get okay, Grandpa. And will the serial killer be Eric Roberts? Also, like a walker stalking him, and that's what he uses to get people to believe he's some harmless old man, and then he cuts them.
The funniest thing about that movie is when he has to reveal to Lorraine Bracco that he was having an affair with Mimi Rogers, and when she decks him in the face, it sounds like an Indiana Jones punch sound effect.
Well, considering the effect back then, it might have been. And I don't think it's going to be hard to get Lorraine Bracco to come back. So, but will the audience want her back? Really? You know, so no.
Made her look old then.
Well, I mean, you saw that Marky Mark Hollywood, where she's barely recognizable. So I'm just like, and Lorraine Bracco as Mrs. Garrett. There you go, your Facts of Life movie.
Oh no.
Next, we have two immovable objects coming together to make a movie. Will Smith, Michael Bay, Fast and Loose, which is their next movie they're teaming up to make, where Will Smith wakes up with no memories and slowly discovers that not only is he an undercover cop, but he undercover CIA agent, but his role is as a crime leader or cartel leader. So I'm like, is he at war against himself? It obviously won't be emotionally because it's a Michael Bay movie. I just say, bring in the big guns, villain or partner, Jake G. Jack's Jake Gyllenhaal to the rescue. He does good work with Mr. Bay. And how are you feeling about this project?
So this was one of the movies that originally he was supposed to do until the infamous slap, and it was delayed. And I think David Leitch was going to direct it at one point. But now that Will is supposedly on the comeback trail after Bad Boys Ride or Die, now they feel confident to make this movie again. And I've always wanted to see him work with Michael Bay, you know, for another collaboration that wasn't a Bad Boys movie. They almost did Phone Booth together. So it could be fun. I wouldn't be surprised if Martin makes a cameo somewhere in there. But, you know, Michael Bay needs a hit because the last couple movies have been kind of crappy, a little overdone. Maybe working with Will again, they could get that magic going.
I say, well, Fast and Loose sounds like the movie Dave Bautista tried to pitch with him and Jason Momoa in a buddy action comedy. I say, put them in here just to see what works. You never know, because either way, it's going to be overblown. You know, so I'm kind of excited to see this because I feel like Will and Michael Bay work well with one another and work well off of one another, you know, and they're both getting up there in age. So maybe they can just do what's best for the project. Just don't let Max Landis do any rewrites and we'll be fine.
And don't make the movie about family.
No, I think Vin Diesel has that cornered. Also, Daniel Day-Lewis is coming out of retirement, but it's for his son's directorial debut. So it's for something you would expect. It wasn't like this role was so well written, I had to come out, you know, for Paul Thomas Anderson or for Martin Scorsese. No, I'm coming out for another Day-Lewis movie. And I'm just wondering, does it sound like whining when his son has to direct him? Like, oh, so now you're gonna tell me what to do? Who's got Oscars here? That's right, me. Who came out of retirement for this? I feel like watching behind the scenes on this film will be like watching Bar Rescue when the parent is paying the kid's bill for the bar, and the host has to explain to the kid, "Your father's losing his retirement for you. He did this for you, and this is how you treat him." Um, yeah, we'll see. How are you feeling about Day Lewis coming out of retirement? And
That's a cute reason to come out of retirement. It's like when Harrison Ford was taking a break from acting and he appeared in his son's short film where he was acting like a black guy. It's
okay,
on YouTube. You can find it. It's like,
I
what
just
up, bitch?
it's like, oh, geez, stop it. Just give Harrison his doobie and leave him alone. I just wonder, like, do other actors whose kids direct films now feel like slighted? Like, you didn't ask me to be in your fucking movie. Like, if Ellen Barkin and Gabriel Byrne's kid comes out with a movie, are they like both kind of burned? Like, oh, but you couldn't give me a call. It's not like I'm busy. It's like I just imagine Gabriel Byrne's son calls Aiden Quinn first, and then he calls his dad. It's like, oh, you don't think I knew of? I mean, you know, me and Aiden talk, you know. But
I just find
anyway,
it funny if like Gabriel Byrne's son called him up. Oh, we're gonna do a fan sequel to Cool World. Would you like to be in it?
that's a big decision for Gabriel Byrne. Like, I don't know. I do need the money. No. I wonder if he ever calls Arnold Schwarzenegger like end of the days too, huh? So, you need me? You know, I could be on FUBAR, you know. You know, or does he call up Kevin Hart? Heard you're doing another season of Die Hard. Since you used John Travolta, you ever think of calling me up? I'm free. So that shows Gabriel Byrne will never be on this show if you ever see this episode. Next, we're almost through with the news, folks. That's why we're getting wet. Frank Darabont is coming out of retirement to direct only 2 episodes of Stranger Things season 5 because he's such a fan of the show, and it's one of the few things that he actually likes that he watches with his wife. And also, he says that people who make content today are horrible. So that's why he doesn't really work that much or chooses not to work. I think it's great for Stranger Things, and I'm happy Frank Darabont is coming back. I'd like to see more of his work because, yay, the movies he's directed, maybe not Black Cat Run, have all been very memorable and offered, you know, original points of view. And he's a hell of a screenwriter, you know, but he's even retired from that. And it just seems like his experience on Walking Dead has really just made him be like, fuck that. You know, I'm not doing anything. But I think it obviously had to be more than just Walking Dead. It had to be a bunch of other experiences, but that might have been the one that broke the camel's back. How are you feeling about Frank coming back for a one or two?
I think it's a good thing. It'll add to the fact that the last season of Stranger Things is going to be epic. And if you want to go big and dramatic, then you get somebody of his caliber to write one of the stories. And it's possible maybe one of the ones he does will be, you know, involve a significant death of one of our favorites. We'll see.
It would be messed up if it's like the 2 episodes he directed are the ones where nothing much happens. It'll be like, so wait, you got the Duffer Brothers doing all the good stuff, and he only came in for like intro, you know. And our final story, we have J.J. Abrams being released from movie jail, and is planning on making a fantasy film starring the always busy Glenn Powell and Jenna Ortega, but The Rock might also be involved. And the only thing is that it's being written by Zach Penn. And it seems like it might be a fantasy or a franchise film that they're trying to set up. How are you feeling about this news?
I only heard one rumor about what this movie might be, and the rumor I heard was that it could be a his version of Back to the Future. It would be a time travel movie. Um, Super 8 really didn't do it for me, despite the fact that it was kind of doing the Stranger Things thing before Stranger Things came along. So this is just another attempt for JJ to just ride off of Spielberg's coattails. Glenn Powell, John Ortega could be interesting. I'm not really thrilled on his directing these days, so I don't know. I have to see a trailer.
The way you described it, it sounds like a Back to the Future. The Rock is Biff, Glenn Powell as Marty, Jenna Ortega as young mom. I'm like, oh, then it would be even more uncomfortable. Hey, I say let J.J. Abrams walk. Hey, Robert Zemeckis was writing the coattails of Spielberg for a long period of time too, and look at where he got to. So why not J.J.?
This
I
JJ's a
say, hey,
hack.
the man behind Forever Young is not a hack.
He wrote Regarding Henry with the freaking Ritz crackers twist.
Which we talked about. Hello. It gave my man Bill Nunn some good work. Okay. So I am not going to look Regarding Henry in the mouth. It gave John Leguizamo a debut. So put some respect on Mr. Abrams, okay? It's not his fault people are still upset about Lost. And what he did with Star Wars after.
And you know who I blame for all this? James Belushi.
Okay. Why James Belushi?
Because he wrote Taking Care of Business. That launched his career.
Hey, don't blame. All James Belushi said was yes, okay? And James Belushi is a weed smoker. So I probably smoke weed, read Taking Care of Business, and be like, wait, I get a hottie model? I get to live the rich life? And Charles Grodin gets all the shit done to him? Yes. And that's like being mad at Walter Matthau for taking the couch. And he does the easy lifting. Dan Aykroyd's doing the heavy stuff. Just saying. But that ends our news segment. And now we're on to the trailers. So help us God. Because some of these, geez. First up, the one all of you have been waiting for, Frank Grillo returns in another action movie, in a movie called Werewolves, where it seems like The Purge at first, where they close off this whole town because they're doing an experiment where they inject a bunch of soldiers with this werewolf serum, and big shot, they escape their cages. So now he has to help hunt them down and save the town. Look, if just from that description, you know what type of movie we're talking about. I will watch on Tubi. It's where it will inevitably end up. But yeah, I'm not paying to go see this. Andre, how did you feel about the trailer?
It looks like a knockoff of that Jamie Foxx vampire movie on Netflix.
Yes.
Yeah, the same, like similar concept, but played more serious. And obviously, Frank Grillo's not really a funny guy. He just, he's Frank Grillo. He's like those gangly Italian badass. Just for some reason people like him. I'm still trying to figure it out. But I will say the girl in the movie who plays Bumpy Johnson's wife on Gotham Harlem, yum.
Well, she's got to work. I did not know you had a distaste for Frank Grillo.
I mean, I would work with Frank if opportunity presented itself. I know he's big with James DeMonico, but I'm just like, can we just get him to do something a little bit different instead of like always have to be like this asshole Italian American? Like he could do more stuff. I would think he did soap operas.
I mean, he could do more stuff, but that's just his screen presence. It's like Chuck Norris or a Charles Bronson. These are just the roles he plays or gets cast in.
Have him play a white rapper.
No, that's not going to work. if you're gonna call somebody for that, that's when you call Bobby Cannavale.
Oh no,
You
no,
know?
no.
Yes, because Bob Cannavale is willing to do that.
Oh
Frank
no.
Frank Grillo, he's more like your asshole manager at your part-time job, you know, where you can't threaten him because he could probably kick your ass. Or your gym, your gym trainer who picks on you. Like if they made an adult Revenge of the Nerds movie, he'd be a great
The
villain.
guy who takes his lunch break at a bodega to get a ham sandwich with a lot of mayonnaise.
He's a guy who watches you in the work lunchroom intensely for no reason. He's a guy who works at your job who you know did time. So
The guy who will make your pizza and just give you an angry, like, death stare the whole time.
especially if you ask for a free soda. um, Next in the werewolf tradition, we have the Wolfman, not starring Ryan Gosling, but Christopher Abbott, directed by, written and directed by Lee Wagner, whose last movie was The Invisible Man, even though it was female oriented. Here he does something very interesting, where the father in a family, they're stuck because there's a werewolf outside, but he soon starts slowly becoming a werewolf so that the wife has to protect the daughter from him. And it seems like it's going to be more, secluded and in one area will be where the film is set, instead of like this being some big budget movie that takes place across all these cities and towns. So it's a way of trying to impress the audience, considering it's shot in IMAX, but also keeping it low budget by keeping the locations, and the cast small, and Julia Garner playing his wife. That's the only like weird measure of the film, because Julia Garner is a great actress, but another one who still looks a little young to play like a young mother, especially with Christopher Abbott. Not that he looks super old or anything, but he looks too old for her, and she looks all of 19. So I mean, I'm intrigued, but again, I guess as we get closer to the release date, we'll see my excitement for the movie. I mean, right now I'm on the fence, but it does look interesting, and I like all the actors involved. What did you think of the Wolfman trailer? Mm.
It looks interesting. It looks like with the Invisible Man, it's focused on like more psychological terror than like horror and gore effects. I was kind of hoping it was going to be the Ryan Gosling version. Obviously, it isn't. But I'm going to just say like I'll probably give it a shot just because it's Lee Waniel, or how do you say his name. Just because I think he did a very good job with the Invisible Man. So I think to do something like that, but with less money involved, could be interesting.
Okay. Next we have the movie we knew was coming, Thunderbolts. Where we have basically all spin-off characters come together for their own movie of the Marvel version of the Suicide Squad. Where at first it seems like they're all being hunted or turned against each other, and then they come together under Julia Louis-Dreyfus's characters. I guess she's the leader, and do missions for her. And again, another thing of Suicide Squad with Amanda Waller. So it's coming up. I was shocked to see, I guess, I'm trying to remember the character from one of the Ant-Man movies.
Ghost.
I was surprised that she was one of the characters in this. Not complaining, because Hannah Kamen, who plays her, yeah. This is again, Florence Pugh seems to be more the main or leader of, and it's just weird seeing her play an action hero, because she's just so small. Great actress, but so small. And then they put makeup on her, and I'm just like, this just doesn't seem right either. Sebastian Stan's Bucky seems to be the one who's after them, and probably later will join their ranks. Wyatt Russell, as U.S. agent, what the one from Black Widow, the villain with the mask.
Taskmaster.
Yeah, but and is David Harbour going to be the comedic relief in this?
Seems that way.
Okay, because I was about to say, who's the Ryan Reynolds of the group? I would think it would be Wyatt Russell just off of personality, but it seems like it's going to more be David Harbour. Look, I'm probably going to see it. But this also feels like this time Marvel's copying DC, and it just feels like one of those movies that's going to be like, rather than like, yeah, you know. As the bigger Marvel fan, how are you feeling about the Thunderbolts trailer? Mm.
Well, you said it at the end. This is like a, yeah, I don't really give a shit kind of Marvel movie. It basically Black Widow 2, following up on Yelena and the Red Guardian, and then trying to tie it with the events of the Falcon and Winter Soldier and, just all these other random, not necessarily villains, but anti-hero slash villains, and doing the same thing as they did with Suicide Squad. There's I watched this trailer. It's not really doing anything for me. It just looks like another grounded Marvel film, but not in a way that's fun or like this is going to be a bombshell. It's going to change the MCU. This feels like a Disney Plus special. And I think that's pretty much the way I'm going to treat it as. The same thing with Captain America Brave New World. These are movies I'm simply just having to sit through. And I don't want to pay money to see them unless I'm like with a group of friends. So I'd probably just wait for it on Disney Plus.
Well, but at least this looks better than the Captain America
Okay,
movie.
yeah, I will say it does look better than Captain America, but still, it doesn't rise above the bar of I want to shell out money to see this opening weekend. This is not Deadpool and Wolverine.
Okay. Okay. Next, we have not really a trailer, but kind of a teaser for The Brutalist, which has been next to Anora, one of the best reviewed films. Nora's been released now, but that hasn't been released. And it stars Adrian Brody. It's written and directed by Brady Corbett, whose previous film was Vox Lux with Natalie Portman. And it has an interesting trailer, whereas it shows scenes, but the film moves from side to side how it would naturally in a projector rather than, up vertically, that how it's usually shown. It's like a newsreel. But basically, I'm excited to see this film. The only thing that is a challenge is that it's 4 hours long. That's if I don't see it in theaters, I literally don't have the time to watch it because it's going to be a challenge. But it does excite me. It looks like a James Gray film almost, just under a different director. And supposedly this might be the comeback Adrian Brody needs, when he's not trying to be a music producer. So fingers crossed, how did you feel about the, I guess, teaser?
Well, I mean, I did hear that it was getting a lot of praise. I don't really know what it's about, even just from watching the trailer. But I'm with you. I do hope that it's a comeback for Adrian Brody because he is a fantastic actor, and I think the industry has done him very dirty in the past decade. So hopefully this either doesn't give him another Oscar win, at least a recognition to get back into some A-list parts.
Yeah, so he doesn't have to wait and keep calling Wes Anderson like, hey, so I heard you're working on another movie. What role am I playing? And let Adrian Brody be the new Willem Dafoe. He just shows up. Yeah. You're like, I don't know why he's here. Next, this one's a little more different than the other trailers. This one's a little more crazy. Crazy House, starring Nick Frost and Alicia Silverstone. I like the premise where it seems like they're it's basically a home invasion film where in the deluded mind of Nick Frost's character, it plays sort of like they're in a family sitcom, but then we see the real horrors and violence that are actually happening. And I kind of like that aesthetic. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this film. Plus, Nick Frost with a Southern accent is always great to see in a film. And Alicia Silverstone slowly making a comeback again in these indies. What did you feel about the trailer for Crazy House?
I love the concept. When I first watched it, I thought for a second they were trying to rip off WandaVision with the whole like it's a sitcom, but then here's what's really going on with these people. But I like the fact that, first of all, it's a big vehicle for Nick Frost, who's been fantastic in all the movies with Edgar Wright and alongside Simon Pegg. And yeah, I mean, for anybody that's ever grown up on those 80s, 90s sitcoms and kind of like spinning it in this very twisted, demented way, I think it could be, one of those off the wall type of horror movies that we're going to be talking about for a long time. So I definitely would like to see this one.
Okay. Next, we have Conclave, starring Stanley Tucci and Ray Fiennes. I'm going to be honest. This looks to be more Oscar bait film, but what keeps me interested is that it's written and directed by Martin McDonagh, Oscar winner for screenwriting, and I think visually it looks great. The things we see in the trailer as they try to figure out who will be the next Biga Popa, and I'm a big Ray Fiennes fan. So that's another reason why I want to go see it. But I don't know if the material is there to keep me engaged for 90 minutes to 2 hours. So that's going to be one of those game time decisions where it's like, well, there's nothing else out, so I wouldn't mind seeing this. Or, oh, I think I can wait for it. But I'm sure it will be good to be what looks like the Catholic Pope or priest version of 12 Angry Men. How do you feel about Conclave? The trailer.
You got a fantastic cast with Ray Fiennes, John Lithgow. Was Stanley Tucci's in this too?
Yes.
Yeah.
How did you miss him? He's in half the trailer.
Yeah. But it's hard because like I'm looking at this thing, looking at this trailer, trying to figure out what it's going to be about. And I know it's supposed to be about like who's going to be the new pope, and like all sorts of violent shit happens. Hopefully we don't get booed off of YouTube, but I'm watching this. I'm like, where's the sexual abuse part coming in?
Well, they're not physically going to show it.
Like, no, I'm not saying show it, but I'm like,
this isn't.
Are they going to tackle stuff they're not showing in the trailer?
Oh, okay. Because I'll say this isn't Amityville 2. Jesus. Why? Did you really want to see John Lithgow get down?
Well, he's gotten down before, but I'm
I'm
just saying.
Nobody's like, hey, pull a J.K. Simmons, Lithgow.
Oh, we're going to talk about J.K.
So I'm like, but yeah, I understand what you're saying. But yeah, it'll be like, what was that? Not stupid, but that movie with Rachel McAdams and Mark Ruffalo as the reporters who
Spotlight.
Yeah, it might be like that, where it's more talked about in interviews with victims rather than like, hey, you're looking kind of cute.
No. More like Doubt, not whatever, like Maxine or something.
Drink some of this Jesus juice, why don't you? As chicka waka wak wak, or the Sesame Street theme starts playing.
Satan's Alley.
Hopefully, please, YouTube, don't kick us.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so our trailer. Well, it's again another teaser. Companion with Jack Quaid, who I guess this trailer it looks like he's making a meal for his beloved, but then we see his beloved is tied up, and it seems like it's kind of a stalker story. But again, it's a teaser, so we don't get much. It definitely has me intrigued. I'm just hoping it's not like that Daisy Edgar Jones Sebastian Stan. Again, just the big screen version. What are you feeling about the teaser for Companion?
Pretty much the same. Very intrigued. Feels like a Me Too era flick. Jack Quaid looks crazy as usual. Thankfully, he's not like his father.
Damn.
Yeah, I got to see more.
Yeah, yes, there's no scene of like Jack Quaid eating sloppy shrimp. So thankfully, nor is he like, what are you, or wearing a MAGA hat in the trailer as he brings dinner.
Or looking to like sexually assault Megan Good.
Was it sexual assault or just obsession?
I
Eh,
think,
mm.
hey, black don't crack.
Well, at least he's not wearing a hoodie with dyed hair like in movie 43. And, so, hey, we've got to work. Nor is he doing Ronald Reagan voice like his
That's
father.
between him and God.
But is he going to try and fly a plane through faith in Christianity with Heather Gray?
At this stage in his career, just get back together with Randy and just do your little like right
Oh,
wing sound of freedom move.
jeez, let's not even get into Randy. That's like saying, "Hey, Jermaine, why don't you and Jackie get together?" It's like, no, just be crazy separately, not together. What are you trying to make the Vega brothers in real life? Uh, anyway, and next we go to somebody who doesn't have a brother, Timothy Chalamet,
Are you sure this
playing
is brother?
not a famous one. Yeah, his brother went into accounting. So we have the James Mangold sequel to his stupid Joaquin Phoenix Johnny Cash movie, I Walk the Line, with a complete unknown, the Bob Dylan story, where Timothy Chalamet perms his hair in different ways to play a young Bob Dylan on his way to becoming a legend. This film has been rumored to have a lot of reshooting done, and besides basically feeling like we've seen this by the Coen brothers before, I'll give it a shot, but it just feels like one of those holiday bio films that they put out. But then again, I was shocked at how much I enjoyed I Walk the Line. So I'm willing to still give this film a chance. How are you feeling after seeing the trailer for A Complete Unknown?
I'll make a confession. I mean, I have an appreciation for Bob Dylan, but I can't say I'm a Bob Dylan fan. My mom's
Okay.
probably a little bit bigger fan of Bob Dylan. Um, I think, listen, Chalamet, I think he can pull it off. He's got the voice down, he's got kind of the mannerisms, and yeah, does look like Walk the Line too, but without it doesn't seem to be like getting into controversial stuff like drugs or anything like that. It seems like this is pretty much straightforward coming of age story. And I probably wouldn't pay to see it in theater. I would wait for it on streaming, to be honest.
Well, it sets up my next project, the Tom Petty story, starring Hayden Christensen.
I'm waiting to
You
do
know,
my Manhattan Transfer biopic.
why not a rat biofilm? Or jeez, or the story of Sticks.
I met Tommy Shaw. I would like to do that.
Are you going to have the damn Yankees period too in there? Mm,
Oh yeah, we have that damn Yankees and Mr.
yeah, so
Roboto.
and somebody's gonna have to play Ted Nugent.
Well, we could always make some cuts.
I was about to say that's when I call up Glenn Powell. He's in everything. He can't play Ted Nugent. But anyway, next we come to the trailer for The Electric State, John and Joe Russo's new $300 million film that stars Chris Pratt and Millie Bobby Brown trying to look modern in a blonde wig. That looks like that. There was this sci-fi film that had Bill Murray as the villain and Saoirse Ronan as the star of it, where they were a part of this underground society. This looks Borderlands level bad. This movie, it just looks like a big budget remake with some live action of that animated film Robots. I have zero interest in this movie, but I'm probably going to have to see it because it will be on Netflix. And at this point, I know Chris Pratt started talking about how he doesn't like people on Hollywood sets having attitudes when they're in such a privileged position. But my thing is, unless there was a kick-ass script here, I do not know why Chris Pratt is in this movie. When there's probably plenty of other good scripts out there that he could be in. But I have zero interest in this. As you said before, this seems like a Netflix movie waiting to happen. But it's going to be released theatrically. Um, how do you feel about the Electric State?
Feels like $300 million just to work with all your friends, because a lot of them are all people that they've worked with in the MCU, plus Millie Bobby Brown trying to venture out of Stranger Things. But again, the concept doesn't really hook me. Oh, we're going to do alternate 1990s where robots are running around and people are glued to screens. I mean, did we kind of do this in Ready Player One? Everybody's glued to a screen and the real world sucks. Like, there's really nothing here that gets me like so excited that, oh my god, the Russo brothers are back and they're doing this amazing film. This is another Gray Man. This is just like a lot of money to do a not so inspired original project. And I'm all for original projects, but this seems bloated, nothing original, and I don't know why I want to waste my time with this.
Yeah, this is why I give them more credit for that movie, that Apple Plus movie, Cherry, because
Yeah,
at least it was something different for them. This just seems like more of the same. This is like, well, we owe the studio a movie, so let's do. It sort of feels like a less inventive Wachowskis were doing. Only very much less inventive. So, yeah, I'm just not really looking forward to this movie at all. It's just like, if this is the film that the studio should have been like, wait, we're giving him 300 million for this? No,
no wonder they're going back to Marvel.
exactly, because this is what, outside of Marvel, the tentpole movies they want to do, and even if it's a hit, how much is the sequel going to cost?
And the funny thing is, they produce Everything Everywhere All at Once, which was just brilliant. You can't find anything like that for yourselves as directors.
Exactly, and so this just feels like something on the level of Solo bombing. Next we have, I'm gonna mess up his name, K. Kui Kwan and Ariana DeBose, in a movie called Love Hurts. That, going by the trailer, I hate to say it, has charmed me. It seems like it has a very eclectic cast. It's an action comedy where he's a former, I don't know if it's an assassin or if he was just a former, hitman, basically, who decided to let a prisoner go and set up a new life for both of them separately. And now they're coming back for him because I guess he worked for his brother, and his brother's goons are hunting him down. And the makers of this film knew how to get to me because they cast Marshawn Lynch in. So I'm already pretty much there, And Kay gets, again, a chance to show off his action moves as a former stunt performer himself. He's so small, you don't expect him to be so action oriented. I think this is going to be a much more sillier and fun version of, let's say, something like Nobody. I'm looking forward to it because after seeing a recent movie with Ariana DeBose called House of Spoils, she's the only good thing in it. So I feel like maybe they've finally given her another role that is worthy of her talents, where she can act and gets to kick ass too. So I will definitely be going to see Love Hurts. What did you think of the trailer?
I was very charmed by it. I'm glad to see that Key is finally getting his flowers. They're essentially turning him into the new Jackie Chan here, and I don't mind that at all. I think it really does feel like one of Chan's like prime era movies back in the 90s. And it definitely feels like it's in the same universe as Nobody. It's the same producer, so that doesn't surprise me. One thing that did surprise me, though, we get a mini Goonies reunion here with Sean Astin in a small role. So that's
True.
cool to see. And obviously, it was Ariana DeBose who was the one who presented the Oscar to Key. So, clearly, I think they're going to have some chemistry there because she clearly likes him, enough to want to work with him. So, and having Marshawn Lynch was like icing on the cake. There is nothing right now that makes me hate this thing. It's like, you know what? all these little like castings, the tone, and having Key in the lead, you got me opening day. I want to see this and I want to support Key because that kid, he deserves it. I mean, not a kid, but you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
he's been through a lot, and so growing up with him as Short Round and as Data in the Goonies, it's like I'm just happy to see him working again.
Hey, let's not forget Jasper.
Yes, out of the class.
Yes,
Yes.
and random nerd student in Encino Man. The only thing this movie is missing is Brendan Fraser. In here.
Hey, you
You
never
know,
know.
hey, as long as he's better than in the Scorsese movie, I'm for it.
Maybe
You
while he's
know,
at it, throw Pauly
Eh,
Shore a bone.
I didn't say let's go that far. I'd rather you call Michael DeLuise from Encino
Uh,
Man. And for our final trailer, we'll be talking about where Ana de Armas, they finally released the trailer for Ballerina, the prequel between John Wick 3 and
yeah.
4, because big shock, Keanu's got a cameo, and we also have the last role of Winston.
Lance Reddick. Yeah.
Yeah, in this, and of course, Ian McShane was going to be in this, and Angelica Houston returning as the head of this agency. Like, let's face it, we know this is kind of a big budget reimagining of Colombiana, which was pretty much a reimagining of The Professional if Matilda had grown up, those adventures. I think Colombiana was originally supposed to be the sequel to The Professional, but Natalie Portman didn't sign on. So that's how we got it, Colombiana, with Zoe Saldana. But now there's been rumors that this film has been noticeably reshot with a different director. The original director is Len Wiseman, but a lot of people are saying Chad Stahelski, who directed the John Wick movies, reshot a lot of the film and now has made it more passable and has changed the storyline around. But he denies this, so we'll just have to go see the movie and see what happens. But I mean, the trailer is interesting. I definitely want to see this movie. Because obviously, if this is a hit, then maybe we'll get that character from John Wick 4, whose father was killed, and seeking revenge against Donnie Yen's character. Maybe she'll get a spinoff too. Or Ballerina will start this cycle all over again of a character like John Wick going to the ends of the earth for revenge. Because even Chad Stahelski says it's going to be hard to make a John Wick 5 because they've already reached the pinnacle of what John Wick can do. So why would you bring him back again? So this might be the closest we get to that franchise and universe. And how are you feeling about the trailer?
I actually have no problem with this. I think, again, it's expanding the universe of John Wick. You got Ana de Armas, who is beautiful and clearly can do the physical combat. And it doesn't seem like it's going to insult the franchise. And that has to do in part with, I guess, Stahelski coming in and doing the reshoots. Because I didn't watch the Continental, but my understanding is that nobody from the movie was involved with that, and so that's why it was like poorly received. So I think they were really determined to make sure if this is going to be within the world of John Wick, let's keep the quality consistent across the board. So I'm going to give it a shot. I think that, if you're whatever, they are going to make a fifth John Wick at some point, but if we're going to have to wait a little while, this is a good filler until that point. And yeah, I'm not like one of those guys like, oh, they're gender swapping and all that shit. No, I think it'll be fine. And he's in it for a little bit, so I'm going to give it a shot.
Okay. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all of the trailers. So now we finally have made it to the review section. Yay! And we have 6 movies that we are going to review today. So let's hop to it, because I'm sure if you sat through it this long, you're like, yeah, give me the money shot. What are we talking about? So the first movie we're going to talk about is Bones and All, directed by Luca Guadagnino, who we talked about earlier. If you bothered watching the new segment. And this is also based on a novel by Camille DeAngelis, which I believe was a young adult novel, strangely enough. But this is basically a young girl having to find her way after her father abandons her and she discovers that she is a cannibal. She likes eating the skin of human beings, living or dead. And that's how she survives. And it supposedly gives people who are cannibals kind of a, it's sort of like the spinach for them. It gives them something extra, strength, insight. And as she goes across, she ends up hooking up with a young male hustler cannibal played by Timothy Chalamet, and is kind of on the run from Mark Rylance as this weird kind of Jasper from Family Guy kind of cannibal. And she meets, like, she finds her mother, played by Chloe Sevigny, and obviously the Tilda Swinton role. And Michael Stolberg shows up as some redneck cannibal, and basically they're trying to live their lives while on the run from this Mark Rylance character. And I have to say, going into this movie, which I saw with one of my friends, Sabrina, it's very well shot. It's got great art direction. It's a film that's more creepy than anything. It's not exactly a horror film, even though there's violence and there are some shocking scenes. But I found this like kind of a hodgepodge, because as they're going across the states, it's like the director wants to show the beauty of the Midwest and its landscapes, but also wants to have this human heart, like love story, but also character piece in the middle of it. And Taylor Russell, is just so expressive, even though she doesn't say much. And she's beautiful. And Timothy Chalamet playing kind of a bisexual punk cannibal is he's better than you expect him to be in the film. And I will say, I didn't expect to see Chloe Sevigny in this film, and she just is fucking scary in this. So is Michael Stolberg. But I have to give the film, I would say, it's worth watching, but I can see it not being ready for everyone, because it's not super graphic in its violence, but it can be violent. And human life is kind of disposable in it. But I would definitely recommend it. What did you think of Bones and All?
I'll be perfectly honest. It's been a while since I've seen it. All the only impressions I have from what I remember was that it did move pretty slow, even though I thought the acting was fine. I think Mark Rylance was the standout because just how freaking creepy he was. It was unlike most parts that I've seen him do, where he's usually like the gentle old man, or occasionally he'll play a villain, but I haven't seen too much other than the gunman. Um, that's really it. I don't know, mild recommendation for me. I didn't think it was bad. I thought it was well shot, and the performances are fine. It was just kind of slow.
Well, I really enjoyed it. I'll admit it was slow, but I think it's a starter film for people who want something other than a mainstream movie and want to see something a little more artistic. Or maybe even if you're going to watch one of Luca's films, that should be maybe one of the first. So you see what he does with a more conventional story and how he spaces it out, makes it his own. Next, we have the movie it took me forever to watch, and I probably only watched because the sequel is coming out. Smile, written and directed by Parker Finn and starring Saucy Bacon. Saucy?
I call her Saucy Bacon.
Okay. Kevin Bacon's daughter stars in this with Jesse T. Usher. And my man Kyle Gallner is in this. And for some odd reason, Cal Peck. And I have to say, I stayed away from this film because just looking at the trailers, I thought, oh, this is going to be such a studio horror film with a bunch of jump scares. And watching it, I was shocked at how into the movie I got. It's still pretty much a conventional horror film, but I feel like the story is well earned. It just doesn't feel like something that was made up just to tie together a bunch of scenes. and it's actually very sad and nihilistic horror film, which you don't usually get from horror films. It's sort of like The Ring, where there's just this air of depression that hangs over the whole film. And it kind of has a trick ending, whatever. But it got me while I was watching it. It really pulled me in where I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen next. And it has that sense of, the gore with, a lot of these characters harming themselves, but also like I don't know, I'm messed up. The scene at her, I guess, nephew's birthday party and what she gives him. I live for scenes like that in movies that are just messed up, disturbing, but also kind of funny. So that alone also helped push this film up. Plus, Kyle Gallner, who is also in Strange Darling, he's one of my favorite character actors because I've been watching him ever since he was on Veronica Mars as, I think it was Chipmunk was the name of his character. And he's always just been an actor who has a performance that comes not necessarily out of nowhere, but there's more to his characters than what you think. And he has a striking look. I'm not going to say leading man looks, more the psycho type character looks, but he can play both, either or. So I would definitely give it a surprise recommendation. Not only that, I kind of actually might go see Smile 2 in theaters because of how much I like this. Andre, what did you think of Smile?
It was fine. I thought that maybe the trailers didn't quite live up to the hype, but the scares were there, the gore was there, the shock value was absolutely there. What it reminded me of was the movie Fallen with Denzel Washington, the way like he didn't know when this entity was going to jump from person to person and obviously bringing harm to themselves. So that's something that you don't see a lot of in movies these days. So I like that aspect of it, and I find Saucy Bacon to be very appealing. I'd like to see her do more. Shame she's not in
Yeah,
the sequel, but that's the
yeah.
whole spoiler.
Yeah. I mean, she definitely has the charm of her parents as an actor, but not. I would say I don't see her in the same roles they would normally play
No,
either. And the one thing maybe that is messed up about this film is that I didn't like even the characters who were around her before she was being haunted by this entity. So I think the entity, in small part, did her a favor to get her away from it. Like her fiance, her sister. I was like, couldn't this be the Invisible Man and they get that treatment? Watching the film. But would you recommend the film?
yeah, just recommend it.
Okay. Are you interested in the sequel? Mm.
I'm gonna wait for on streaming.
Okay. Next, okay, we are going to go. Where should we go? Let's talk about Woman of the Year, directed by Anna Kendrick and starring Anna Kendrick. This is based on a true story of serial killer Rodney Alcala, I believe his name is, who was a serial killer who was convicted of killing 8 women, but numbers go as high as saying that he killed 130 of them. And this focuses on a little kind of trivia in his past of being a contestant on the dating game and winning. And Anna Kendrick is a wannabe actress who gets the gig to be on the dating game and, actually chooses him over all the others. And they're supposed to go to Caramel, California, but after a creepy night together, that is heavily in doubt. This film is inventive in its structure because it starts off showing one of his MO for his murders, and then we get into Anna Kendrick's storyline. But realistically, this movie is more all about Rodney Alcala and his killings. And like I feel like Anna Kendrick's character comes in just to give us something else to watch and kind of bring everything together. Because you're wondering what's going to happen on their fateful date, but that's not really one of the major plot lines. It's more seeing how he's going around the country killing these various different women. And even though he doesn't really look like the actual Rodney Alcala, Daniel Zavato, who a lot of you might remember from It Follows, is really good here. Like, I'm talking Zac Efron as Ted Bundy, where you can see the attractiveness, but you can also see the scariness, but you also kind of see the charm that got these women to trust him in the first place. Anna Kendrick does make a solid directorial debut, but again, it feels like maybe this was just added and her role was added so it could get funding by having her actually also be in it, as her and Toby Huss as the game show host are really the biggest names in here. And I like how the film illustrates how basically the police are useless, because even when that girl who recognized him and when she's watching from the audience of the show tries to report it, it kind of falls on deaf ears and nobody really does anything until, the ending, one of his last victims kind of reports. And then even in the scrolls, they're telling you like many witnesses and survivors told the police about this, and then nothing happened really. And we even see a prospective victim when he's working for, I think it's the New York Times magazine, and showing his portfolio, and he tries to get the guy to go to the beach with him and take pictures. I think the film is better than I expected it to be, but also I can kind of see the seams that stitched it together to make it more, I guess you could say, commercial and not just another serial killer bio. But I would give it a recommendation, and it's better than its Netflix tag would have you believe. How did you feel about Woman of the Year?
When I saw the trailer for this, I actually thought it was about Richard Ramirez because I believe he too had appeared on the dating game while he was killing girls and before he was caught. Didn't know it was like a separate killer that also was kind of the same deal. I liked it like you did. The structure was different to show the killings and then cutting back and forth to the game show. And then the setup with the hitchhiker chick thinking she was going to be another victim and then slowly finding out she's the one that ultimately got him caught. So it was like that was a nice surprise how that was handled in terms of the overall narrative. And just, like I like the tension within the game show to see how this guy was like creeping out the other contestants and not just Anna Kendrick. And the tension with the girl who's actually Leslie Odom's wife, and very gorgeous, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah, like just I really believed her, like that she was trying as hard as she could to like get to the producers, get to the security, get to the police, and nobody believes her at all. And that frustration you feel as an audience member. Um, One thing I will agree with, I think Anna Kendrick's direction is solid, but the part could have been played by somebody else just because Anna Kendrick, I cannot figure her out. Is she a dramatic actress? Is she a comedic actress? Is she more like, an actress who does a lot of singing? I don't think the industry has really defined who is Anna Kendrick. But as a director, I would even argue she's maybe a cut above better than Olivia Wilde to some extent. Not great, but a little better. But yeah, she probably could have gotten somebody else to play that part, and not you could been able to suspend your disbelief a little bit more with it. That's my only pet peeve, but otherwise, I really liked it, and the guy that played the killer, I thought was excellent. So definitely a recommendation here too.
Okay, and just to correct you, Leslie Uggams' daughter.
Oh,
you
was
said
it?
you said her wife. I was like, I didn't know Leslie Uggams got
No, I,
married
I
like
meant
that.
Leslie Odom Jr.
Oh, okay. Because I was gonna say, yeah, because I was say Leslie Uggams.
No,
Wow. Yeah, you
no,
find out so much.
no,
No, I agree with you. Um, I also noted this is also definitely a female oriented, because there's no likable male characters in the film.
yeah, none.
Uh, and even that weird neighbor played by Pete Holmes,
Mm.
and his reaction at the end, it was just like, okay. And well, your comments on Anna Kendrick, you can't blame her for Hollywood doesn't know how to use her. That's more Hollywood casting too. But my thing is, where did you hear her sing?
Did she sing in Pitch Perfect?
Oh yeah, well she did that song, the Cup song, but it's not like she's going out there like, where's my record contract? She's not Haley Seinfeld. So no offense to Haley, they both are great singers. But I think also you got to keep in mind Anna Kendrick is a theater kid too. She can do it all. She went like her big break was in that movie Camp about theater camps. She played what was it? Itzy? Some German name, but that's the first time I remember seeing her in anything. But I mean, I think unfortunately she has that same thing of just being, you never know, like you said, you don't really know because she can do drama, she can do comedy. She's Oscar nominated for Up in the Air before, and really, I'll be honest, I used to get her mixed up with Zoe Deutsch, you know, because they have that same kind of appeal. But it seems like Zoe Deutsch gets more work, and Zoe Deutsch also focuses, it seems, more on comedic roles. But I really like Anna Kendrick, but I agree with you. I wish she was in more stuff that kind of defined her as an
Yeah.
actress a little bit more. But on the plus side, I also think that shows she can do anything that is called for. Though I don't want to see her in a horror film. That's the only genre.
I'm sure that's coming.
Not she can do thrillers. I mean, she has a Simple Plan, and I'm sure a Simple Plan 2 is going to eventually come. So she could do that. So she could be like Susan Sarandon a little in the 80s, where it's like, we don't know exactly where to put her, but she keeps working. But we both give a recommendation for Woman of the Year. So next, I'm going to talk about a movie that shocked the hell out of me. Thelma, written and directed by Josh Mangalin. I thought it was going to be a gimmicky movie about, an old lady trying to seek revenge against people who kind of conned her. And this film is so much more. It's like a noir film, or a detective story, but also it shows the cruelty and indignity sometimes of getting older and kind of being second guessed or put out to pasture, but also bringing up the comedy of some of these like trials and tribulations, like getting used to, computers or new technology, or having to learn how to use your body weight to help a fellow senior out. And this film is just heartwarming and charming. I loved everything about it. I love the cast. June Squibb, again, excellent in a role where she gets to be a lead. Richard Roundtree's last role. And I think this is the oldest I've ever seen him in a movie, too. He's just so older and frail. And he's kind of funny in his. It's funny seeing Shaft be kind of square in this movie. I always love seeing Parker Posey on the big screen as her daughter, Clark Gregg, and the guy who played her grandson, who's always worried, even though he came across as kind of more a sitcomish character. But even that moment where he calls, I guess the girl is his girlfriend or a friend who he wants to date, and saying how he needs to straighten out his life. And my favorite in this movie, Malcolm McDowell with 2 gold chains. I'm like, that is some pimp stuff right there, while also being on an oxygen machine.
Pimp Daddy McDowell.
Exactly. I was like, this film I freaking loved. And even the twists and turns you very much know how it's going to end. But at certain points, you do worry about the characters and what's going to happen. I still would have liked them to address Mona a little more. Like maybe Mona finally got to go to a retirement home. But I really enjoyed this film way more than I expected. And based on a real character, the writer and director's actual grandmother, who is the wife or widow of television and feature film director Ted Post. So it all comes full circle. And it even shows video footage of her because she's still alive at 103. And June Squibb and the character is supposed to be 93. And she doesn't even look like she's in her 90s either. But yeah, I give this a high recommendation. This is a film you don't see coming and charms the hell out of it. What did you think of Thelma? Mm.
I'm not going to say I loved it as you did, but I did find it charming. I thought, give credit where credit is due for people like June Squibb in her 90s and Richard Roundtree, who clearly you could tell was sick, but still had a spark in his eye, still like those two, they worked great together. And I really thought, oh, even the Malcolm McDowell surprise really was very much something that I was very pleasantly surprised about. Um, yeah, it plays into like almost like a heist movie trope at times, and that's a good thing. It is funny, like she has her obsession with Tom Cruise and Mission Impossible, so they try to like play that up, but in the geriatric sense. And and I like the scene when she's towards the end, spoiler, when she's trying to use the computer to get her money back, and like the pop-up bag comes, like, oh my god, I can't do it. That stuff that like your grandparents would get into, like that. There was some relatable things that I thought were pretty hilarious. Even Clark Gregg having the heartbeat monitor on his kid, and then he switches it over to the guy that doesn't talk. And so there's some funny bits that I really like, but for me personally, the standout was Richard Roundtree. And this is no offense to June Squibb, who I think should get an Oscar nomination for Thelma. But Roundtree, again, to be as frail as he was at that point and not the hero, like we all grew up to see him as, he really delivers something, even at times there's a little bit of chef like moments in there that show like he's still got a little bit of a spunk, even though his character is nothing like that. But it was like, if that's the last we ever get to him, that was a high note. And so I just give it a recommendation. I'm not gonna say like I loved the movie, but I think it's worth watching.
Yeah, I love it. I think, even to my own surprise, unless a bunch of other good films come out, this might be on my top 10 of the year. That's how much I enjoyed this film. And I also like that they made even the side characters interesting. Like you said, the guy who doesn't talk, the two kind of orderlies who work at the nursing home, the Spanish lady who has a bad memory, who they have playing Annie,
Oh yeah.
The Italian guy who wants to know where the hell his scooter is. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. This is the type of film that I feel Hollywood doesn't make anymore, and I like that this was made, but I also don't want to see 20 carbon copies because it feels in its own lane. And it doesn't have that Netflix feel good TV movie
Yeah.
quality to it. This feels like an actual film. So I definitely highly recommend it. Next, we have two more reviews. Both of these are on the big screen, so no more video on demand or Netflix movies. We take a look at a movie some of you need to see called Saturday Night, about the 90 minutes before Saturday Night Live, the first episode ever, premieres, and all the chaos and problems that go on behind the scenes. Now, for those of you who are like myself, Saturday Night Live history aficionados, half of this stuff didn't happen or is more played up than what actually happened that night. But it works for the film, and just to kind of put a general consensus of what can go wrong, will go wrong behind the scenes. And everybody is good in their impressions, really, of the actual characters. I like the film. I think this is Jason Reitman trying to come back to like his roots of more independent, I guess, comedic, but also character studies. I was shocked that the guy who was playing Lorne Michaels is the same kid who played young Steven Spielberg in Meet the Fablemans. Dylan O'Brien, I guess, is like the biggest name cast member playing a cast member. So I enjoyed his performance as Dan Aykroyd. I felt, again, since every movie must write a Willem Dafoe role, Willem Dafoe is not really used that much, but is just an additional problem to the whole movie as the head of the network. looking like his Pier Pasolini in that Abel Ferrara movie with the slicked back but kind of low. And J.K. Simmons coming out of nowhere. You see him in the trailer and you wonder who the hell he's playing, and then finding out he's playing Milton Berle of all people. Um, he does a good version. Doesn't look like him at all, but it's a good impression. And uh, the dong heard round the world. J.K. Simmons
Oz
dropping
homage.
a chow, where I'm just like, wow, I am shocked they got away with that. And in front of Kaya Gerber, Cindy Crawford's lookalike daughter, who plays Chevy Chase's fiance in the film, I'm just like, wow, that is like one of the most memorable scenes. But I mean, I enjoyed the film, but I got to kind of nitpick here and there because as being I read live from Saturday Night, know the problems that happened. I kind of like the Johnny Carson, threatening phone call that's supposed to be complimentary. The analogy of the Teamsters when the other guy's trying to build the brick floor and then finally deciding, let's give this kid a hand. I felt like they only gave Garrett Lamorne Morris's character playing Garrett Morris. I felt like they threw him a bone because we know, unfortunately, even though those African American of us know, of course, that's where Garrett Morris got his big start. But let's face it, they didn't give him much to do. And so even in the film, it feels like we got to give him something to do. So we have him questioning why he's there. And then he finally gets that big scene where he gets to sing the song about Whitey's. And it's like, okay, here's his moment since everybody else has a moment in the film. So it felt like kind of like, oh, we're going to tack this on. But for the most part, I liked the film. I mean, whoever played Lorraine Newman just gave her character like, I didn't understand her character. Like, she seems threatened by Rosie Schuster with Dan Aykroyd while also being attracted to Dan Aykroyd. I'm not gonna get into who looks like who because I'm just like whoever played Jane Curtin does not look like Jane Curtin. I think the whole cast did well, and so much so that hopefully me and Andre film where I pitch a Saturday Night Live film universe of movies. Though going by the box office, I don't think that will ever happen. But I give it a recommendation. How did you feel about Saturday Night, the movie?
Well, yeah, as you mentioned, a lot of what happened the first taping is not true. I mean, it was very over exaggerated. However, I can believe the chaos of trying to get the show together in that 90 minutes. And I think Jason Reitman captured that chaos perfectly. First, the generational gap between all these first generation, not for primetime players, and then the union guys working on the show, the suits, and all these other people that they just don't get it. They don't know what the fuck this is. It's clearly being done because of some contract dispute with the Tonight Show, and they wanted to fail. So the chaotic nature of it, I think, is perfectly captured in the cinematography, how like the camera's transitioning from moment to moment. The editing is fast paced. And you really do feel like that 90 minutes goes by very quickly because of how, uptight Lorne Michaels is all throughout. And yeah, I think the performances were fine. I think Dylan O'Brien might have been the standout as Dan Aykroyd. I think just his impressions and the way he spoke, I think he totally nailed it. I did have a little issue with the guy playing Belushi. Not that he was bad. I think he was fine. I just think they overdid Belushi here, that they try to make him like so drugged up and angry. I'm like, he couldn't be like that all the time. It seemed like that was the only thing that they wanted to focus on. Chevy Chase, I could believe being a complete asshole throughout. And then there was like that scene, and I still to this day don't know what to think of it when it's John Belushi ice skating in Rockefeller Center and Gilda Radner's like up there. She's talking about like, oh, coming back here in the next 20 years or what this day was like. And I wonder if that was that supposed to be like their setup or homage to the fact that they're both like the first two to eventually pass on in the next decade, because I'm still trying to figure out what was the point of that part. Um, and yeah, there was that. There were like some things that are a little too convenient, like how Alan Sable got the job just from writing some stupid jokes for a nobody comedian, and Lorne Michaels had to be sitting there. He's like, "Oh yeah, come work for me." Um, the guy playing Michael O'Donoghue was very good. He was fucking
Yes.
hilarious. As was the guy playing Carlin, and how angry he was half the time and drugged up.
Matthew Rice.
Matthew Rice. And I thought it was like, honestly, I thought it was somebody I knew personally, the way he looked. And I don't know. But yeah, that was Matthew Rice. Um, I liked it. I would definitely give it a recommendation. And it definitely got me thinking about if they were to do like a Saturday Night Live universe. I think part two either should be when Bill Murray came in, or when like 5 years later when everybody left and then Eddie Murphy saved the show. That would have been a good follow-up. Also, they really did make Dick Ebersol look like he was the real villain, not so much the suits, because of how he was trying to like manipulate with like the camera, like let's get the Polaroid thing going. Like it seemed like he was like subtly trying to sabotage the show. And the stuff with Billy Crystal I didn't know about, that he was like cut from day one. And then they don't even set up the fact that he comes back later as a regular, like in 84. But overall, I enjoyed it. And it's a shame it's not doing well. I think more people need to see it, because it really was like, for a movie released theatrically, that was well worth the money.
Well, I'm going to talk about that, but let me just give my other minor quips with the movie. Why did Nicholas Braun need to play two roles as Andy Kaufman and Jim Henson?
And why is Kaufman basically doing the Latka voice all throughout? Couldn't he just be regular Andy Kaufman?
Well, maybe he was in character. And why is George Carlin such an... This is the only thing you'll ever see where George Carlin comes off as an ass throughout any. That was really just strange, because it's like, so in this movie, you're forcing me to believe George Carlin's the villain, but Lorne Michaels is the hero. Yeah. Oh, how the roles changed later in life. And I agree with you. I think this goes back to what Robert Zemeckis was saying, that nobody in Hollywood kind of knows what to do, because in the past, this movie would have been the little movie that would have gotten such critical praise, and then audiences would discover, and it would end up being like an awards darling and make all this money. Whereas now or you'd at least see advertisements and commercials for it. People be like, huh? I got to go see this and see what's happening. Now it just seems like it's like this movie they just put out slowly, but all these other movies, word of mouth is beating theirs. So like when it's a slow month, people were talking about, hey, did you see Saturday Night? Because I know it was only playing at 68th Street and Alamos at first, and then it opened wide. But then it happened to open wide when everybody's now going to see the real independent hit, Terrifier 3. So that worked against it. And then Anora came out, and that's the current critical, love fest. So that hurt its box office. But I think it deserves to be discovered. But it truly lives up to a saying I'm working on, which is that me and you, we watch the films of today that people will be talking about tomorrow. And I feel like this is definitely a film that lives up to that kind of promotion.
I also feel if this movie had come out, like, let's say when Saturday Night Live did their 40th anniversary, or any time before that, this would have been marketed as an event film. And I feel like they just kind of dumped it.
True, but it did come out around the date that the first Saturday Night Live aired. But no, like you said, nobody really played that up. So they lost a marketing opportunity right there. And I think another reason why this film kind of didn't do that well is because it does have some actors you'll recognize, but most of the cast is made up of unknowns.
Which I like. So you just suspend your disbelief.
Exactly. But unfortunately, marketing wise, it's a hard sell unless you get really diehard Saturday Night Live fans, or at least classic Saturday Night Live fans.
Come watch J.K. Simmons whip out his cock.
Yeah, you can put that in an ad.
He's a chick magnet for the AARP crowd.
true. I mean, but the problem is, I don't feel like people who currently watch Saturday Night Live really care about the history. So
Right.
that also works against it. So, but definitely, if you can, if it's still in theaters by the time you see this, definitely check out Saturday Night or go see it whatever streaming platform it's on. And even though it's 90 minutes before Saturday Night Live, somehow the film's running time is an hour and 40 minutes without credits. So you figure that math out, youngins. And we reach to our last movie review of the show. And it's quite a doozy. It is a movie by the name of The Substance, written and directed by Coralie Farragut, who is a French female film director who made a film a lot of you, if you're film fans, might remember Revenge, the French thriller about a girl who's taken to an island or getaway and raped, and they leave her for dead, and then she comes back and gets her revenge. This film is basically about self-hate. An aging actress who's being put out to pasture. She loses her fitness show, and she hears about this drug, the substance that can make you younger, or the best version of yourself. And she tries it, and basically, well, spoiler alert, a younger version of her sprouts out of her body. But the younger version has to keep the older version alive, and they have 7 days. And, that's how much supplies each has. And if you go past the 7 days, it hurts the other one. So throughout the film, we're constantly watching them each kind of sabotage each other. But even though in an early scene we see Demi Moore naked and she looks perfectly fine, she still doesn't see the beauty that most of us would see in her at that age. And so throughout the film, she kind of sabotages herself because she still wants to be loved by others, even though she doesn't love herself. And that's what becomes the main theme of it. I mean, most of this film takes place in a studio in her apartment. So doesn't have a big cast. It's Demi Moore, Margaret Qualley as the other version of her, and Dennis Quaid as her manager and producer of her show, replacing the late great Ray Liotta, who I think would have been very interesting in that role just for the suits alone. And I'm not gonna lie, I kind of want those suits that Dennis Quaid wears throughout the film. I would wear them. And shockingly, for a kind of science fiction horror fantasy film, the grossest scene is watching Dennis Quaid eat shrimp. It's like just the close-ups, all the sauces and everything, and the aftermath. It feels like a massacre scene. I imagine it's what people watching Terrifier 3 must feel like once the movie's over. It's just like, good thing I wasn't eating during that scene. And the final third or the final act of this movie has to be seen to be believed. I'm not going to spoil it, but even though pretty much the internet partially has, this is a movie I think all of you need to see. And next to Thelma and Saturday Night, I recommend this film highly. It is definitely in my top 5 of the year. This is this year's Titan for me. It's still not my number 1, but I love this movie. Even if you've seen it, go see it again because you'll notice something you didn't see the first time, or just to see the audience's reaction to certain scenes. It's one of those types of movies. And I don't know if she'll get nominated, but this is the best role Demi Moore has ever had in a long time. And I wrote a physical review because I love this movie so much. But I also kind of like that kind of references her past roles, even in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, in its own way. I loved it. I highly recommend it. Andre, how did you feel about The Substance? And
in one word, whoa. That definitely made my top 5 for sure. And I think basically everything you said, that this is probably the best role she's ever done. It's brave, and not because she gets naked, but what she has to endure throughout from beginning to end. And definitely deserves an Oscar nomination at the very least, because this was her comeback film. This is the one that really shows like why we fell in love with Demi Moore to begin with, and why I think she has emerged as somebody that needed to get her flowers again, because she hasn't really done a whole lot that's really stood out in a long time because of ageism in Hollywood. And I think that's kind of reflected in the film, in that she had her heyday. They want to put her out to pasture. You know, you got the young girls that are maybe a little bit more slender, maybe have a particular kind of look that the guys like, and that's what they're going for. And then she's still trying to fight for what she has left. But for every ounce of that, she's destroying herself and getting physically to a place that is very uncomfortable to look at and surprising to see her do. To me, this movie encapsulates everything that David Lynch, David Cronenberg, and John Carpenter are capable of when they're at their highest peak of talent as directors. And so what we have in this is just mind-blowing and uncomfortable, but in a way that works for the overall narrative. And when you do get to that third act, again, we're not going to spoil it, but I would compare it to the first time I ever saw John Carpenter's The Thing. It really freaked the fuck out of me. And for that, I highly recommend it. It's in my top 5, and Demi Moore definitely deserves, at the very least, an Oscar nomination.
I agree. Margaret Qualley is good, but I think we're at this point,
Yeah,
that she's almost in every other film. We already know that.
This was Demi's movie, period.
Exactly. I think the guy, the voice of the substance, I guess, dealer, he should do trailers. He should be our new trailer voice guy. I know we don't agree with his politics, but I like Dennis Quaid in this movie, his character, who's kind of the villain in his own way. But I thought it was good casting, off the wall casting, because him or Ray Liotta playing this role, those would not be names I would have first thought of for that role. I'm just wondering, would Ray Liotta have gotten veneers or dentures to play it? And can he be grosser eating shrimp? Dennis Quaid. But like I said, I give this film, this is the film you should definitely be watching in a theater out of all the films we've talked about today, because it deserves all the accolades, the box office, everything it's gotten. And I think this is definitely a film that the TikTokers and, you know, all the online film critics will be talking about once it hits VOD. But unfortunately, that ends all of our business for this week. But as you know, we always have, let me straighten my camera. As you know, we always have unfinished business. But before you go, I have to ask, have you seen Titane? If not, why not? Because it's fucking awesome. Andre, what movie would you recommend for the folks at home?
Have you seen the movie Narc with Ray Liotta? If not, why not? Because it's fucking awesome.
Agree. And with that, we bid you adieu.
If you like this review, please be sure to like and hit subscribe to be alerted to new episodes in the future.